My name is Lena Vivienne Park, 16 years old. Dad's voice didn't start loud. It sharpened as it rose, like a blade learning its purpose. Out, he said, breath hot, finger jabbing the air between us. Get out of my house. Behind him, Natalie leaned on the banister like a queen who'd learned to sit just high enough to be worshipped. She smiled without teeth. Good luck, loser. The living room looked the same as always. Afternoon light striping the floorboards, the old clock beating out seconds like a metronome. But everything else had tilted. Dad's prized watch, the one in the glass case, the one he'd cleaned with a cloth more gently than he'd ever handled a feeling, was missing. And Natalie had told him I took it. I could have screamed the truth. I could have recited every petty cruelty she'd cooked over the years, every accidentally broken thing, and every pointed lie that bloomed in Dad's ear like gospel. But we'd all played this scene before. My voice never got top billing in this house. Daniel, Mom said, stepping between us, her voice a calm match in a dry forest. She didn't do this. Think. He shook her off like the thought physically hurt. You always defend her. I've had enough. I didn't take your watch, I said, but the words felt thin in the thick air. Natalie tilted her head. She could set the room on fire with a shrug and blame the smoke on me. Mom's eyes grabbed mine. Stay, they seemed to plead. Don't break. But Dad's grip closed on my arm and shoved me back into the wall so hard the hangers rattled in the hall closet. Heat crawled up my cheeks. Shame is a strange temperature, burning on the inside, freezing on the outside. Get out! I swallowed everything rising in my throat. Fine. On the stairs, Natalie didn't move. She watched me pass, that small, satisfied curve to her mouth, like she'd found a better way to eat than chewing. I should have said something clever and holy and cutting. I didn't. I went to my room, shut the door, and turned the lock, a useless little click that had never protected me from anything important. The room looked suddenly childish. Concert posters. A desk strewn with a geometry worksheet I'd half finished at lunch. A photo booth strip of me and Evan, our heads bent together in the third frame, his grin too big for the paper. My hand shook as I pulled a backpack from the floor and shoved in what I thought a person needs to exist. 3 shirts, 2 jeans, hoodie, charger, toothbrush, 1 book that had taught me how to leave a chapter. 16. No money, nowhere. I stared at my phone long enough for the lock screen to blacken and reflect my face back at me like a stranger's. It buzzed. Evan, you okay? You haven't answered. Evan, I can Uber over. I'll talk to him. Evan, Lena plus... I typed, erased, typed again. Don't. He's not listening. Going to Grandma's. I'll text later. A pause. Then, I'm here when you want me. E. Downstairs, Mom's voice broke against Dad's anger. They always cast her as the reason things didn't explode. They never noticed she was the reason they survived as long as they did. I slid the window open and climbed out the way Tessa, Evan's ex, used to joke I would someday, like a heroine in a show that forgot to be careful with its girls. This wasn't a joke. I crossed the side yard, kept to the fence line, and slipped through the gate to the street, backpack biting my shoulder like a consequence. Grandma lived 2 bus rides and a long walk away, in a neighborhood where the trees grew the way they wanted and the sidewalks cracked without asking permission. When she opened the door, her eyes flicked to my bag and then to my face. She didn't ask. She just stepped aside and said, "Kitchen." That first night, she made fried rice the way Mom does when she's too tired to be anything but honest. I ate it without tasting it. Heat and salt and the feeling of something entering a body that had decided it didn't deserve anything. Grandma didn't push. She never has. She took the spare blanket from the closet and laid it over the couch like a blessing that pretended to be fabric. In the morning, she said, we'll decide what's next. In the morning, we didn't decide anything. I lay on the couch listening to her kettle whistle and pretended I was just visiting a version of my life where people didn't demand I bleed to prove I love them. She sat at the table, sipped tea, and muttered things in a voice meant only for God and whoever else was qualified to judge. Your father, she said at one point, soft as a bruise, always needed an audience. And Natalie, she learned her lines. Day 2 felt like a rerun. The problem with being 16 and exiled is that you are supposed to be at school in the morning and home at night, and the world isn't built for anything in between. I texted Evan homework questions and nothing else, Mom didn't call. Dad didn't either. The silence was an answer, and the answer was that I had become an empty room in a house that liked its echoes better than my voice. On the third afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mom. I stood up so fast the blanket slid to the floor. Her voice sounded different. Not pleading, not shaking, not the soft apology I'd heard 100 times when she tried to be the bridge between a burning house and a child. It was steady. "Come home," she said. My mouth worked. "What?" "I'm sending you money for the bus. Come home now." "Mom, Dad." "Trust me," she said, and there was a note in her voice I had never heard before, a note that made me want to cry and didn't let me. "Just get here." The text arrived while I was still listening to the call's ghost, a transfer that would cover the trip and a sandwich. I stared at the numbers like they might solve something bigger. Grandma watched me from the doorway, her arms crossed, her chin high. "You go," she said. Then, under her breath, the verdict she'd been writing for years. About time. The bus felt longer than the map. I leaned my head against the window and watched the city blur. I drafted 5 messages to Evan and sent none. The closer we got to my street, the more my palms sweated. Houses slid past like the suburbs pretending to be safe. Mine waited at the end of a block that suddenly felt like a stage. Mom stood in the doorway, arms crossed, not crying. She looked ready. "Come in," she said. I stepped past her and stopped. Dad and Natalie were on the couch, not looking at each other. Dad had a drink he wasn't drinking. The glass clamped in his hand so tight his knuckles shone. Natalie's face was pale, scrubbed of triumph. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom took a breath and didn't let it out until she'd spoken. "It's time," she said, and looked at Dad. He scoffed. "Time for what?" "Time for the two of you to leave." Silence landed in the room like a new piece of furniture no one wanted to acknowledge. "What?" Natalie laughed, the sound bright and false, like something a phone would play for you if you asked it what laughter was. "You're kidding." Mom didn't blink. "No." Dad stood, color rising. "This is my house." Mom's mouth quirked. Not a smile, an autopsy. "No, Daniel, it isn't. I paid for it. I have paid for everything. Mortgage, food, your car, your fun. I worked, you didn't. You let our daughter become a dartboard because it was easier than admitting you had thrown the darts." She picked up a folder from the table and set it in his hands. "I've spoken to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Your credit cards are canceled. Your accounts frozen." Natalie shot to her feet. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That," Mom said, "is not my problem." I thought of Natalie at the stairs, the curl of her mouth, the way good luck, loser had felt like a shove down a staircase only I could see. I leaned my shoulder into the wall and watched her search everyone's faces for the old choreography. It wasn't here. Dad tried one last time, summoning a tone he must have thought sounded like authority. "We're not leaving." Mom's finger pointed to the door with the steadiness of a judge. "You can leave on your own, or I can call the police and file for removal. Your choice." Something in Dad's face changed. Confidence cracking along hairline fractures like cheap ceramic. He reached for his coat with hands that weren't steady. "Come on," he muttered to Natalie. She didn't move. She looked at me instead, angry and suddenly young. "Say something." I took a breath. The words were light in my mouth, almost a kindness. "Good luck, loser." Dad inhaled, like he might hit me again with the air itself. He didn't. He opened the door. For a second, they both hesitated, waiting, I think, for Mom to fold back into the wife, who made survival out of obedience. She didn't. They stepped outside. The door closed. Mom locked it. She texted someone, the locksmith, with the same steady hands she'd used to keep us fed for years. Then she turned and exhaled. "Welcome home," she said. I wanted to say every thank you I had never learned how to say. What came out was smaller and truer. "I'm starving." Mom's mouth softened. "Pasta's on the stove." I followed her to the kitchen, the smell of tomato and basil and a thing I hadn't tasted since I was little, safety, filling the air. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. "You okay?" I typed back, "I think so." Then added, because I finally could, "I'm home." Mom didn't hover. She poured me water, slid a bowl of pasta across the table, and let the quiet settle over the kitchen like a blanket that finally knew what it was for. The house felt different without their voices, lighter, sharper, like air after hail. "You really did it," I said around a mouthful, and she snorted softly. "Damn right I did." She sipped her coffee. "Should have done it years ago." From the hall, the front door latched and the house sighed. Mom texted 3 words and a pin. "Locksmith. Now. Then she set her phone face down and looked at me. Eat. After that, we're changing passwords. We started with the utilities. Accounts I'd never known had my mother's name alone next to an ocean of bills. She slid me the laptop, and I typed without needing her to explain. I'd taught Tessa to block numbers that summer. She wouldn't stop texting Evan. This was the same muscle, just heavier. The locksmith arrived with a tool bag and a nod, no questions asked. He swapped the deadbolt by muscle memory, metal against metal, a clean, inevitable sound. When he left, Mom and I worked in a rhythm we'd never had space for. Phones, email, bank alerts, subscriptions I didn't know we were paying for. It felt like rewiring a house while living in it. By afternoon, the thresholds of our lives were newly drawn. We were washing bowls when my phone vibrated across the counter. Natalie. Are you serious? You're just going to let her do this to us? I didn't answer. 15 minutes later. Wow. So this is payback? You think you're better than me? You'll always be a loser. I set the phone to do not disturb. The landline rang. Mom glanced at the caller ID and put it on speaker. What do you want, Greg? Dad's voice came through too fast, too rehearsed. Lisa, you can't be serious. I'm very serious. This is cruelty. You expect us to sleep in the street? You expected our daughter to, Mom said, and picked a piece of basil off the cutting board with anthropological care. Figure it out. He sputtered. She hung up. The next day, silence settled like fog. It was almost kind. I slept in my own bed and woke to a ceiling that wasn't a countdown. I brushed my teeth without glancing at the door like an alarm might walk through it. I walked to school, caught Evan's eye on the sidewalk across the street, watched him check in without crowding me. You okay? His eyebrows asked. Yeah, mine answered. It stayed quiet for 2 days. On the morning of the third, Mom's phone rang while she was making oatmeal. She eyed the number, sighed, then tapped speaker. Lisa, Dad said, in a new voice, controlled, like he'd sanded the anger off. We need to talk. About what? A pause. Natalie and I want to come back. I almost dropped my spoon. Mom didn't blink. You what? We overreacted. Things were said. Let's all agree both sides made mistakes. Both sides? Mom's laugh held no humor. Where are you right now, Greg? Silence, then resigned, my mother's. Well, Mom said, let me guess. She asked you to leave too. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Listen, he tried again. We can't live on the street. Just let us come back and we'll... Respect, Mom said. What? That's the price of the door, Mom said, conversational, like going over a menu. Respect for me, and respect for Lena. No more insults. No more manipulation. No more leeching. If you can't do that, you don't step foot back in this house. We're a family, he scoffed. You don't slam doors on family. You kicked our daughter out, Mom said. Don't lecture me about doors. Mom. Natalie's voice appeared in the background, pitched to the frequency that used to crack glass in our kitchen cabinets. Please, you don't mean this. Oh, I mean every word, Mom said, then added, calm as a signed affidavit. And while we're at it, let's talk about the divorce. Dad's breath hitched. Lisa, I've already started. This is done. And if you think you're getting anything out of me, after years of me paying for your life, you're delusional. Silence sucked the room clean. Then Dad went for the angle he should have used first. Can we talk terms? Mom tilted her head. Go on. I just need a little help to get on my feet. We'll prove. I'll give you $20,000, Mom said. My head snapped up. But Mom... She lifted a finger. Enough for first and last on a small place, deposit essentials. Dad exhaled, relief leaking into his words. Lisa, thank you, I swear. After the divorce is finalized, Mom said, and you don't get a penny until you show proof of a job in your name and a lease in your name. Bills paid on time. If not, the money stays right where it is. The line went very, very quiet. You're making a big mistake, Dad said. No, Greg, Mom said, and I could hear the smile she wore like armor. I made a big mistake marrying you. She hung up. Then she blew on her oatmeal and took a bite like she'd just finished reorganizing a closet. I stared. You're intense. I'm tired, she said simply. Tired enough to tell the truth. That afternoon was so peaceful I forgot how to brace. We cleaned, we worked, we clicked a new daily life into place. Small habits tuned to safety instead of survival. Then the text recalibrated. Natalie again. Kurt, this is insane. Are you seriously going to let this happen to me? Wow. So this is who you are. You finally got what you wanted. Congrats. Please, I have nowhere to go. I locked the screen. Mom glanced at me, at the stiff way I held my jaw. at the way my thumb hovered over reply. You don't owe her that, she said. I know. We ate leftovers on the couch and watched a show where people solved fake crimes and still needed therapy. The door never knocked. The night stayed quiet. A week later, the divorce papers arrived via courier, stiff and official. Mom flipped to the last page and signed her name with the same hand she'd used to sign for my field trip checks and the electric bill when Dad forgot. She slid the envelope back to the courier. Thank you. He nodded and left. Will he take the deal? I asked. He'll think he's gaming it, she said. He always does. And if he doesn't get the job? She sipped her coffee. Then he doesn't get the money. That evening, Evan texted a photo of a sky the color of a bruise healing. Saw this and thought of you. I typed, I'm okay, and almost added thank you. He sent it first. You don't need to say it. For 3 days, the house held. It smelled like dish soap and basil and relief. I did my homework at the kitchen table without glancing at the doorway. Mom hummed under her breath while she sorted mail from a stack that no longer included final notices she pretended were coupons. On the 4th morning, the doorbell rang. Mom wiped her hands and opened it. Dad stood on the porch. He didn't look like a person who'd learned a lesson. He looked like someone who wanted you to think he had. Lisa, he said, voice pitched low, humble adjacent. Can we talk? Mom crossed her arms. About? His eyes flicked past her to me, then back. His shoulders sagged. I screwed up. Mom blinked, unimpressed. You don't say. I was wrong, he said quickly, as if speed could disguise honesty. About everything. About Lena. About you. I let Natalie manipulate me. I let my pride... Good for you, Mom said. It doesn't change anything. He swallowed. I'm asking for another chance. Not for me, for Natalie. She can't do this alone. Not our problem, Mom said. Pay for your mistakes. We have nowhere to go, he said, and for the first time in my life, he sounded like a person standing in front of a door they didn't own. Mom stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, prove me wrong. How? Job, lease, bills paid, respect for me and for our daughter. Then, and only then, the 20. He closed his eyes like the math hurt. When he opened them, they were flat. Fine. Good, Mom said, and shut the door. Later, while we folded laundry into piles that looked like a future, Mom said, Do you know the best part? What? The locks don't click for him anymore. And the house, our house, agreed. By the time summer rolled around, the house didn't sound the same anymore. No shouting, no glassy silences thick with anger, just the low hum of the air conditioner, the clink of dishes, and the soft rhythm of two people learning how to exist without tiptoeing. Mom had started smiling again. Not the polite kind she used when people were watching, but the quiet kind, the one that started in her eyes before it reached her mouth. She looked younger, lighter, and I finally stopped checking the driveway every time headlights passed by. A month after Dad's visit, his first text came. Lisa, just an update. Got a temporary gig. It's not much, but it's something. Mom read it aloud and raised an eyebrow. Translation. He's looking for applause. She typed back one word. Good. 2 days later, another text. Can we come by to grab a few boxes? Just photos and stuff. Mom shrugged. They can. I'll be here. When Dad and Natalie arrived that weekend, they didn't knock. Just eased the door open like burglars of their own past. Natalie looked smaller somehow. Or maybe just less polished. The makeup, the hair, everything that used to make her look untouchable was gone. Mom, she started, voice trembling. Mom didn't look up from her coffee. Boxes are in the garage. You can take what's yours. Natalie nodded, but her eyes landed on me next. Lena. I said nothing. You really hate me that much? She whispered. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I just don't believe you anymore. She blinked, like that hurt worse than anything else I could have said. Then she turned away, dragging the first box down the hall. Dad hovered by the door, trying to look brave, but the lines on his face were deeper now. I'm getting work, he said softly to Mom. I'll have proof soon. Then you'll have the 20, she replied. That's how agreements work. He nodded. I know, I'm trying. When they left, Mom didn't move from the table. She just stared out the window for a long time before saying, He really thought I'd forget how to say no. Weeks passed. The text trickled in. Natalie tried again first. Please, I can't stay with him anymore. He's impossible. Just let me come home. I'll behave. I promise. Mom looked at the message, sighed, and handed me the phone. Your turn. I typed, You should call your friends. 2 minutes later, I don't have any. I stared at the screen before locking it. That's not my problem anymore. Mom just nodded. Good. You're learning. By September, Dad's tone had changed. Lisa, I did what you asked. I've been working. It's been hard, but I'm doing it. Mom checked his words against the tiny miracles of reality. No job offer, no pay stubs, just vague promises. She wrote back, "Then show me." He didn't reply. 2 days later, Grandma called. The same Grandma who'd taken me in when no one else would. "Your father came by," she said. "He wanted to borrow money. I told him no." I laughed softly. "Good. He's starting to look like a man who finally met his consequences," she said. "Took long enough." Then, one night, everything cracked again. It was late. I was doing homework at the kitchen table when Mom's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, rolled her eyes, and put it on speaker. "What, Greg?" His voice came through low and tight. "You won't believe this." Mom's tone stayed flat. "Try me." It was Natalie. His words were clipped, furious. "The watch. The damn watch you all accused Lena of taking." Mom froze. I stopped breathing. Dad continued, each word sharper than the last. "She stole it. Sold it months ago. Used the money to buy clothes and some stupid gaming console. I found the receipt, Lisa. She lied to me. To you. To everyone." Mom leaned back in her chair, laughter bubbling up like something dangerous. "Wow, Greg, imagine that. The daughter you defended ruining you. How poetic." "Don't start," he snapped. "I kicked her out. She's gone." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "She's gone," he repeated. "Told her to pack up and get out. Just like I should have done when this all started." Mom let out a low whistle. "So Karma finally remembered your address." He ignored her. "Lisa, I know I was wrong about everything. About you. About Lena. I see that now. Please, can I come back?" The kitchen went silent. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. Mom didn't hesitate. "No. Lisa, you have to pay for your mistakes," she said evenly. "We all do. But this one's yours, Greg. You dug it yourself. Now live in it." He tried again, voice breaking. "You don't understand. I've lost everything." "You lost everything the day you chose them over truth," she said softly. "Good night." She hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at her. That was cold. She smirked faintly. "No, honey, that was closure." We both laughed then, not because it was funny, but because it finally felt safe to. In the days that followed, the house found a rhythm that didn't depend on drama. Mom worked her shifts at the firm. I went to school. We ate together most nights. The quiet was clean now, not heavy. Sometimes she'd glance over her coffee and say, "Do you think Natalie's figured out how to set an alarm yet?" And I'd grin. Probably not. A month later, a brown envelope arrived. Inside were the finalized divorce papers. Signed, sealed, stamped. Mom read the last page and exhaled. Official. "Did he ever get the money?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nope. He never met the conditions." That night, as we cleaned up dinner, Mom's phone lit up again. Unknown number. She let it ring until it stopped. When I asked who it might have been, she said, "Doesn't matter. Some doors, once closed, shouldn't be opened again." Before bed, I scrolled through old photos, ones where we looked like a family pretending for the camera. Birthdays, vacations, Christmas mornings that felt staged. For the first time, I didn't feel like the girl they threw out. I felt like the one who got free first. I turned off my phone, looked at my ceiling, and whispered to the dark, "Good luck, loser." The next morning, the sky was clear. The house was still. Mom brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead and said, "You know what's funny?" "What?" "They'll survive." I smiled. Eventually. She raised her mug. "To starting over." I clinked mine against hers. "To karma." Sometimes I wonder if Natalie's still out there, angry and unrepentant. If Dad ever tells people he lost everything because of Mom's cruelty instead of his own cowardice. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But every night, when I lock the door and hear that satisfying click, I know one thing for sure. The locks aren't just new on the doors. They're new on us, too. It's strange how fast peace becomes normal. For months, I woke up waiting for the sound of a slammed door, a text lighting up the dark, a crisis in someone else's voice demanding my energy. Now I wake to birds, to the low hum of coffee brewing, to Mom humming along with the radio, like she finally remembers the words. We didn't talk about Dad or Natalie anymore. We didn't need to. The quiet had already said everything worth saying. Then one evening, while Mom and I were watching TV, her phone buzzed across the counter. The caller ID read Greg. She looked at it, sighed, and put it on speaker. "What is it, Greg?" His voice came through rough, tired, stripped of all the bluff he used to wear like armor. "You won't believe this," he said. Mom smirked. "Try me." "It was Natalie," he said, words tumbling out. "The watch. The one you all blame Lena for. She stole it months ago. Sold it for cash. Clothes? A stupid gaming console. I found the receipt. The kitchen fell quiet. I felt something old, sharp, and heavy uncurl inside me. Mom leaned back in her chair, her smile thin. Well, Greg, imagine that. The daughter you protected ruined you. You must be so proud. Don't, he snapped. Don't start with that. Oh, I'm not starting anything, Mom said. That story started the day you believed her over your own child. His breath caught. I kicked her out. She's gone. Mom blinked slowly. Finally found your spine. She's got nowhere to go, he muttered. And for a moment, I thought I heard regret. She might try calling you. If she does, Mom said calmly, I'll block her number. He was quiet for a long time before whispering, Lisa, I screwed up. I see that now. I should have listened to you. I should have listened to Lena. Mom smiled softly, but it wasn't kind. Yeah, you should have. Then came the words I think we both knew were coming. Can I come back? Mom didn't hesitate. No. Lisa, you have to pay for your mistakes, she said. We all do. You're just finally paying the bill you've been running up for years. I've lost everything, he said. You don't understand. No, Greg, she said quietly. I understand better than anyone. You just finally learned what it feels like to live without someone cleaning up after you. Then she hung up. The line went dead. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Mom exhaled and laughed. Small, breathy, almost disbelieving. That was satisfying. I grinned. Karma showed up right on schedule. She clinked her mug against mine. Better late than never. The next few weeks slipped by gently. Mom started baking again. She hadn't done that in years. The smell of cinnamon and butter filled the house instead of tension. She'd hum along with old songs from the 90s while I did homework at the table. Sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't. But the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. Every once in a while, she'd check her phone, scroll through her messages, and delete something before I could ask. Old habits, she'd say, smiling faintly. Evan still texted, patient as ever. Coffee after school? Sometimes I said yes, sometimes no, but he never pushed. He just stayed. And I liked that. Someone who didn't ask me to give more than I had. One rainy Saturday, Grandma came over with a pie she claimed she'd accidentally made too much of. She settled into the couch like she'd been waiting to drop the story. Guess who came crawling back to me? Dad, I guessed. She nodded, pleased. Showed up at my door begging for a place to stay. Said the landlord's kicking him out. I told him the same thing your mother told him. Not my problem. Mom laughed. You're my hero. Grandma shrugged. About time someone told that man no. Then she looked at me. And you, young lady, how's it feel, finally being right? I smiled. Peaceful. She nodded approvingly. Good. Let it stay that way. But karma wasn't finished yet. A few days later, Mom got another call from Dad. His voice was quieter this time. I just wanted to say thank you. For what? She asked. For making me face it, he said. You were right about everything. I can't believe how blind I was. Mom's expression softened for the briefest moment. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. I know, she said. Now what? I'm working, he said. Trying to rebuild. It's not easy. That's called life, she replied. He hesitated. Do you think Lena would ever talk to me again? Mom looked at me. I shook my head. She's not ready, she said simply. He sighed. I figured. There was a long pause, then, almost in a whisper, tell her I'm sorry. Mom hung up without answering. I didn't need to hear it from him. Some apologies come too late to make a difference. Life moved on. School ended. Mom's firm promoted her. I turned 17. Evan took me driving on the back roads just outside town. We rolled the windows down and shouted song lyrics we barely knew. For the first time, I wasn't trying to escape home. I was just enjoying the world outside of it. One evening, I found Mom standing by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and pink. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Better than okay. Then she smiled faintly. You know, I used to think peace would be boring. Turns out it's addictive. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Dad's. Mom turned it over, unread. You want it? She asked. I shook my head. No. She dropped it into the trash unopened. We didn't talk about it again. It's been nearly a year now. Dad never did get the money. The conditions in the divorce papers made sure of that. Natalie disappeared completely. No calls, no messages, no fake apologies. It's like the world finally put space between us and the chaos that used to swallow our days. Mom sometimes jokes that she's still waiting for one of them to call just so she can hang up again. I think that's her version of closure. As for me, I don't feel angry anymore, just distant. Like it happened to another girl entirely, one who didn't know that walking away could feel like coming home. One evening, I was sitting on the porch when the streetlights flickered on. The air smelled like rain. I thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the shouting, the slammed doors. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. It just made sense. Sometimes karma doesn't need grand gestures or thunderous justice. Sometimes it's as simple as living better while the people who wronged you keep tripping over their own mess. Mom stepped outside with 2 mugs of tea. Thinking deep thoughts, she teased. Just wondering how it all ended up like this, I said. She smiled. It didn't end, sweetheart. It just began again, this time without them. We clinked mugs together. The sound was small, clear, perfect. Somewhere far away, maybe Dad and Natalie were still blaming everyone but themselves. But here, in this quiet house that finally belonged to us, peace was louder than any of their noise. I took a sip of tea and smiled. Karma's patient, I said. Mom nodded. And always on time.